to do.
What is up, YouTube? This is Cybergun, your chef with the cat, back again for another video. Now, this one's kind of a spur-of-the-moment kind of video because thanks to our good friends at YGO Organization, we have just learned about a new archetype to debut in Shining Victories. And I'm going to be the one to tell you guys all about it. It's this interesting new Pendulum archetype known as the Amorphage, but we'll get more into that in just a second. So, without any further ado, let's get started. Okay, so this is the first of the Amorphages. Big Beefy Dragon, Earth Attribute, level 8 Pendulum Scale of 5, and 2750 attack, 0 defense. Let's take a look into what this guy actually does, though. He is known as Amorphage Irritum, again, Earth Dragon, level 8, scale 5. He has two pendulum effects. The first is more of a condition, the other one is the actual effect. The condition is shared by all of the Amorphage monsters, and that is, during each of your standby phases, destroy this card unless you tribute one monster. So, you do have to pay a bit of a cost in order to keep these guys in their scales, but since this is a pendulum deck, keeping a steady stream of tributes ready is not exactly difficult. So, now for his actual pendulum effect, it states that while you control an Amorphage monster, any card that would be sent to the graveyard is banished instead, except for Amorphage cards. So basically, this guy's a Dark Law, only bigger. And that can be a massive problem. And even with holding this, it's not like it's easy to send a Pendulum monster to the graveyard anyway. So even if they were in a position where they could potentially lose a monster, they still won't. It's just that extra protection. Now, the monster effect is just one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. His monster effect just states, neither player can special summon monsters from the extra deck except Amorphage monsters. That's the effect. Just, you have no extra deck unless it's a mirror match. That's just insane, and for a Pendulum monster, that's just I can't even imagine how difficult it would be to get, like, just to prevent that from being a thing. But, anyway, so that's the first one. Let that be a sign of things to come. Next up, we have this guy here. A little smaller, level 4. Still Earth Attribute, Dragon type, Pendulum Scale 5. He has 0 attack and 2050 defense, so they seem to like their 50s. He is known as Amorphage Cavum. Again, he has the same condition that they all do. You need to tribute a monster to keep him in your scale during your standby phase. So if you have 2 scales, that means you need 2 tributes to keep them both there. Now, his thing is that while you control an Amorphage monster, neither player can chain cards or effects. That means that if you were to activate, like if you were to declare an attack, your opponent could do nothing, because that would be chaining to the attack. Mirror Force, Deprison, worthless, the lot of them. And if you want to try and stop a trap activation, things like Wiretap and just all that jazz, gone, out the window. You can't use any of that as long as this guy's out. Now, admittedly, the same goes for you as well, but that's just ridiculous that it does that. I mean, that's a huge thing. Now, his monster effect is kind of similar to the first one. I'm not fully certain how this works, so what it says is that if this card is pendulum summoned or flipped face up, neither player can special summon monsters from their extra deck except Amorphage monsters. Now, I'm not sure if that just means for the duration of that turn or just forever. I have a feeling it might be the latter of the two, which would be a bit of a problem, since it doesn't give any sort of indication for that. But since this guy can be normal summon, that does give you a bit more incentive to pendulum summon him, so you do get that lockdown effect. Now, moving on, we have the final monster introduced. A bit more interesting than the others, as he seems to have a wolf coming out of his head. He is also level 4, but he has a pendulum scale of 3, which is kind of interesting. Their scales so far consist of 2 5s and a 3, so level 8 cannot be pendulum summoned with what we have right now. Just a little something to bear in mind. He is known as Morphage Olga, and has 1650 attack and no defense. So they all have either no attack or no defense. So Masked Chameleon users rejoice. Again, same condition. You need to tribute a monster to keep him out during your standby phase. Now, his thing is that while you control an Amorphage monster, neither player can tribute monsters except for Amorphage monsters. So that's not too much, really, comparatively. It does make things like Monarchs pretty useless, so there is that as well. And again, he has the same monster effect as the previous one, which says that if he's Pendulum summoned or flipped face up, neither player can special summon monsters from the extra deck. Now, an interesting thing about that is I'm not sure if that just is referencing their ability to Pendulum summon from the extra deck, or if this is going to imply we may have some potential extra deck monsters for these guys. Bear in mind, 2 of the 3 monsters revealed so far are level 4, so we could potentially have some rank 4 possibilities, maybe a tuner involved, this may be a fusion Pendulum deck, who knows, there's a lot of possibilities where we could potentially see. But it is so far kind of interesting how it works. I would assume in order to get at the big guy, you probably have to actually tribute with 2 of the lesser guys out. And to round it off, we have a continuous spell card known as Amorphage Infection. Now, an interesting thing I'm not sure if you guys noticed is these weird little virus-looking things. They were actually found on all of the Amorphage monsters. One right there, and finally one right there on the chest. Now, that's kind of used to imply that all of the Amorphage monsters are just infected and turned into dragons, because if you look at this, it appears to be some sort of a water creature being turned into a dragon. This has a wolf coming out of it, so presumably it was some sort of a wolf being turned into a dragon. And even this shows just 2 clearly non-dragon creatures developing dragon-like features, like a tail and wings. So it's just kind of an interesting thing to note there. That's probably what they're based off of. Anywho, as for what Amorphage Infection does, you can only use the second effect of Amorphage Infection once per turn. Its first effect states that all Amorphage monsters on the field, so both sides, gain 100 attack and defense for each Amorphage card on the field. Now, that's not a whole lot, really, but in a mirror match, that could potentially be pretty big, though in a mirror match, it won't really mean anything. But that is at least plus 200, since it implies that since it's Amorphage cards, that means Amorphage Infection itself counts, plus the monster getting buffed. And if you have more, then more buff, but it's still not a whole lot. The really impressive thing, actually, is the second effect, which is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard in my life, and you heard all of what they do, so. The second effect states that if a monster in your hand or on your side of the field is tributed, destroyed by battle, or destroyed by a card effect, you can add 1 Amorphage card from your deck to your hand. That's a pretty wide range of things that can do and where they can happen for that to trigger. So they already tribute, so that means if you have this thing out during your standby phases, you're searching more Amorphage cards. Also, mind you, cards, not Amorphage monsters, so any other spell trap cards we get for this archetype are searchable now. Also, if they're destroyed by battle or by any form of a card effect, then they still get the search. Now, the only thing that makes this fair is that you only get that once per turn. However, since their pendulum scales have the condition that you need to tribute a monster in order to keep it on the field, that's probably going to work, probably going to be when you get the search. So you'll get your search during your standby phase, meaning once you enter main phase 1, you're good to go. And it doesn't even have to be an Amorphage monster, just any monster at all. So this deck could potentially have some unique synergy with the Hieratics, but that has yet to really be seen what the full extent of this archetype can do on its own. But that's all that they've announced for it so far. Personally, I'm more scared than curious to figure out what these guys can do, but I am still interested in seeing what else they can do. Along with Blue Eyes, this is the only thing we've really gotten for Shining Victories so far, so I'm very curious to see where they could potentially be going with this. So, like I said, that's really all we got so far. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Are these things exceptionally broken, or am I overreacting about this? Of course, you can also let me know either down in the comments or on my Facebook page. Like this video, and subscribe to my channel for further content. Until next time, peace.